If you think you know who rioted at the Capitol, I'm here to tell you no, you do not, because I study the far right and I didn't quite understand how different this group of politically violent right-wing extremists actually are. So we're going to talk about the research of Robert Pape and Kevin Ruby, who originally published their findings on who was arrested at the Capitol in 2021 in The Atlantic. I'm going to be reading from this particular article where they updated the data to over 700 people who were arrested. Okay, so historically, right-wing extremists have been a very specific demographic, at least the ones who've been arrested by the FBI. When they started, they assumed that folks who were rioting at the Capitol would have been part of some kind of violent extremist group, like a skinhead or a militia group, but that was dramatically not the case on January 6th. Typically, 64% of people arrested for violent political right-wing extremism would have been in a militia or some type of violent group. At the Capitol, only 13% were. Previously, right-wing extremists were about a third unemployed. That was radically different at the Capitol. These were folks with middle-class jobs. They were CEOs of companies. They had businesses. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were architects. They had middle-class jobs. Typically, a right-wing extremist would only have a college degree. 10% would only have a college degree, right? That was not the case here. 25% of the people who rioted at the Capitol had a college degree, which is comparable to the national average of 30%. We would expect right-wing extremists to be under the age of 34. The age concentration of those who were arrested were in their 40s and 50s. These were middle-aged folks. They didn't have prior criminal histories, right? Previously, 64% of those arrested had criminal histories. Of these who were arrested, 30% had criminal histories, but they were like misdemeanor charges for like marijuana possession. 20% of the entire US population has criminal histories, for comparison. For those of you who like to shit on rural places, I want you to know that they were not coming from rural places. These folks were coming from places that lost to Biden. They were the political minority. They were coming from Los Angeles, from New York City, not upstate New York. They were coming from Chicago, from San Francisco, from the suburbs. And this is really important, they were coming from counties where demographically non-Hispanic whites were losing population numbers. Remember how people are being hammered with the Great Replacement theory on all of these mainstream right-wing news sources? Great Replacement theory says that white people are being overtaken by minorities and that this is going to cause a loss of rights for white people. That used to be on the fringe. It's now mainstream. These insurrectionists come from 8% of the body politic. There are lots of other beliefs that are associated with whether or not they are in this 21 million people who are part of what they call the insurrectionist movement. Biggest factor is a belief in the Great Replacement theory. This is a trend that is stable over time. Campaigns of terrorism often rest on a fair degree of community support for the legitimacy of the violence. So they really hammer home that 21 million people in America are supportive of those taking violence and think it's legitimate. This is significant community support that makes violent actors feel as though they are not criminals, but that they are acting legitimately. Be very interested to hear if this is surprising to you or if this checks out. They didn't talk about race or gender at the insurrection, so that seems to indicate that it was same as usual, which is white men, but it would be really interesting to see if there was any shift in those numbers, even a little bit. Fun fact, the groups who are most likely to start a civil war are those who have power in a society, but feel that they are losing it.